With the shocking loss of another Hollywood great, Debbie Reynolds.
She was complaining about some sort of a breathing problems. LA Times reporting.
Beloved and legendary actress Debbie Reynolds has died at age 84, just one day after the death of her daughter.
Hollywood once called her America's sweetheart, but behind the sequins and laughter, Debbie Reynolds carried a heart, both tender and unbreakable. She sang of love on screen, yet off-screen, her life was written in heartbreak, betrayal, and moments of impossible grace. Before her death, Debbie looked back not in bitterness, but in remembrance of 6 men who shaped her heart, each leaving behind a scar, a song, or a memory she could never forget. In her own words, "I married all the wrong men, but I learned to stand on my own." In this video, we uncover the stories of these men, the lovers, mentors, and companions who left an indelible mark on her soul. From glittering ballrooms to lonely dressing rooms, from whispered secrets to public betrayals, you will see the woman behind the icon. Stay with us until the end to walk with Debbie through her triumphs and heartaches, and discover which man shaped her life in ways no one could have imagined. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another Hollywood story from legendary archives. Number 1. Eddie Fisher. In the mid-1950s, Debbie Reynolds was America's golden girl, bright, wholesome, and brimming with the optimism of post-war Hollywood. The girl who danced through Singin in the Rain had captured the nation's heart, and beside her stood a man who seemed her perfect match. Eddie Fisher, the velvet-voiced crooner adored by millions. They met at a studio party in 1954, surrounded by laughter and champagne. Debbie once recalled, "Eddie was my first love." People, December 15, 2015. By 1955, they were married. The wedding a public spectacle, watched by a country hungry for romance. They became the picture of perfection, the kind of couple Hollywood invented to keep hope alive. But behind the magazine covers, cracks began to form. Eddie's fame began to fade, while Debbie's star only rose higher. The balance shifted, and with it, his pride. Debbie would later write in her memoir, "Unsinkable, he needed admiration, I needed love. We kept missing each other." Unsinkable, page 155. Then came the betrayal that would define a decade. Eddie fell in love with Elizabeth Taylor, Debbie's closest friend and widow of his best friend, Mike Todd. The scandal erupted like wildfire in 1958. America turned on Eddie, but Debbie stayed poised. She told reporters, "Eddie's affair taught me strength." People, December 15, 2015. Years later, after time had softened the edges of heartbreak, Debbie chose forgiveness. She and Elizabeth even reunited publicly. "Forgiveness isn't weakness," she said in an interview. "It's the only way to move forward." The Hollywood Reporter, December 20, 2016. Eddie Fisher shattered her innocence, but he also revealed her resilience, the quiet strength that would carry Debbie Reynolds through every storm to come. Number 2. Harry Carle. After the heartbreak of Eddie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds swore she would never fall for charm again. What she longed for now was stability. A man who could give her the security fame never could. That man appeared in 1960. Harry Carle, a wealthy shoe magnate, soft-spoken and attentive, who promised to protect her from the chaos of Hollywood. They married that year, and Debbie believed she had finally found peace. She later wrote in her memoir, Unsinkable, "Harry seemed steady, a safe harbor." Unsinkable, page 200. But calm can be deceptive. Carl had a gambling addiction so deep it consumed not only his fortune, but hers too. While Debbie performed tirelessly on stage and television to support her family, Harry quietly drained millions of dollars from their shared accounts. The irony wasn't lost on her, America's sweetheart, working night after night in Las Vegas just to stay afloat. "I rebuilt after Harry left me broke," she said in 2013, NPR, April 2nd, 2013. By the early 1970s, Debbie was facing bankruptcy. Friends begged her to leave, but she stayed for years, hoping he would change. Her devotion was not naive, it was loyal to a fault, the kind of loyalty she inherited from her mother's generation. In 1973, after 13 years of marriage and mountains of debt, she finally divorced him. It wasn't a broken heart, she reflected. It was a broken bank, unsinkable, page 208. Yet even then, she refused bitterness. Debbie walked away with grace and a lesson carved deep into her spirit. Harry Carl taught her that love without honesty costs more than money. It costs peace. And for Debbie, peace had always been the rarest luxury. Number 3, Richard Hamlet. By the late 1970s, Debbie Reynolds had rebuilt herself from ashes again. She had survived betrayal, bankruptcy, and the loss of faith in love. Yet hope, as always, flickered quietly inside her. In 1984, that hope took shape in the form of Richard Hamlet, a handsome real estate developer from Virginia. He was younger, ambitious, and spoke with a kind of enthusiasm that reminded Debbie of her own resilience. She was 52, still dazzling audiences in Las Vegas, and believed perhaps this time she had found a partner who saw her. Not the movie star, but the woman behind the spotlight. Debbie wrote in Unsinkable, "Richard seemed like a partner for my vision." Unsinkable, page 250. They married in 1984, and soon their shared dream became a reality. The Debbie Reynolds Hollywood Hotel and Casino. It was her greatest risk, a monument to her faith in love and legacy. But behind the glittering facade, trouble was brewing. Richard's financial decisions, much like Harry Carl's, began to unravel. Loans went unpaid, and investors fled. Debbie later revealed in Unsinkable, "I built a hotel, and he built a trap." Unsinkable, page 260. By 1997, she faced bankruptcy once again. The hotel was sold at auction, her dreams stripped bare. When asked later about Richard, she answered with quiet dignity, "He was my worst mistake." The New York Times, April 1st, 2013. Yet even then, she didn't surrender to bitterness. She walked away, bruised but undefeated. "I rebuilt after Richard left me broke," she said. NPR, April 2nd, 2013. Richard Hamlet wasn't just another failed love. He was the final lesson that taught Debbie Reynolds the true cost of believing too deeply in someone else's dream. Number 4, Gene Kelly. Before the betrayals, before the heartbreaks, there was a young girl named Debbie Reynolds, 19 years old, wide-eyed, and thrown into a world she barely understood. In 1951, she was cast opposite Gene Kelly in Singin' in the Rain. For Debbie, it was the role that would define her and nearly destroy her. Gene Kelly was already a legend, demanding, perfectionist, and relentless. Debbie was still learning how to dance. The studio paired them together in what became one of the greatest musicals ever made. But behind the camera, the experience was brutal. "Gene was tough on me," she admitted years later in an interview. "Sometimes I'd cry under the piano and then wipe my tears and go back to work." Debbie, My Life, page 102. Kelly's standards were impossibly high. He pushed her until her feet bled, sometimes rehearsing for 15 hours straight. Yet it was in that suffering that Debbie discovered her endurance. In her memoir, Unsinkable, she wrote, "I learned from Gene that discipline is love. Love for the work, love for the art." Unsinkable, page 105. Their relationship was never romantic, but it was deeply formative. Gene saw in Debbie something rare, not just charm, but grit. When the film premiered in 1952, he praised her talent, saying she was essential to its magic. The Hollywood Reporter, December 20th, 2016. Years later, Debbie often called him her greatest teacher. "Gene made me a dancer," she said. People, December 15th, 2015. Their bond, though born of friction, became one of lasting respect. In Gene Kelly, Debbie found not a lover, but a mentor who showed her that strength is sometimes disguised as cruelty, and that greatness often demands a piece of your soul in return. Number 5. Frank Sinatra. If there was one man who drifted through Debbie Reynolds' life like a haunting melody, it was Frank Sinatra. Their story was never a grand romance, more a series of missed glances, half-told words, and a friendship threaded with warmth. They met in the early 1950s, when Debbie was still the studio ingenue, and Sinatra was already the king of cool. He admired her spirit, that playful innocence wrapped in steel. Debbie, in turn, admired his confidence, that magnetic, reckless energy that made him seem untouchable. Frank loved to tease, she recalled, Vanity Fair, January 2016. Their paths crossed again and again at MGM parties, Vegas stages, and charity galas. Sinatra often called her Kid, teasingly protective, though there was always an unspoken tenderness beneath the banter. In her memoir, Debbie wrote, "Frank was always there with a smile." Unsinkable, page 180. He was married, divorced, in love, out of love, always chasing something, always leaving someone behind. Debbie, ever the optimist, stayed his confidant, the woman he could talk to when the noise of fame grew too loud. She noted his respect, writing, "He saw my strength." Unsinkable, page 180. When Sinatra passed away in 1998, Debbie paid tribute, not as a former flame, but as a believer in his complicated soul. He was impossible, she said, and unforgettable. Vanity Fair, January 2016. Frank Sinatra was not one of the men who broke her, but one who reminded her that even in fleeting moments, connection can leave a lasting echo. He was the melody she never quite stopped humming. Number 6. Tony Curtis. By the 1960s, Debbie Reynolds had endured heartbreak, betrayal, and the relentless glare of Hollywood. Amid the chaos, she found a rare kind of companionship in Tony Curtis, her co-star and friend, whose charm was matched only by his mischievous intelligence. Unlike the men who had broken her heart, Tony offered no promises, only laughter, understanding, and a sense of equality. Their friendship began on the set of The Rat Race in 1960, where Debbie recalled that Tony would often tease her between takes, lightening the pressure of the cameras. "Tony was a charmer," she said. People, December 15, 2015. Their bond was never romantic, though Hollywood speculated endlessly. It was built on trust, wit, and shared experience. Tony witnessed Debbie's struggles up close. The lingering shadows of Eddie Fisher, the financial chaos of Harry Carl, and the emotional toll of fame. In her memoir, she wrote, "Tony and I shared a sweet moment." Unsinkable, page 120. Their conversations often stretched late into the night, filled with stories of love, mistakes, and laughter that could lift the heaviest heart. Though their relationship was platonic, it shaped Debbie's understanding of companionship. She reflected, "Tony was a friend when I needed one." The Hollywood Reporter, December 20, 2016. Tony Curtis remained a touchstone in her later years, a reminder that connection need not be passionate to be profound. In a life filled with loss and lessons, he was one of the few who reminded Debbie Reynolds that laughter and understanding could be as powerful as love itself. Debbie Reynolds lived a life that glittered on screen, yet it was off-screen where her true story unfolded. A story of love, loss, resilience, and unbreakable spirit. Each man she encountered left a mark. Some broke her heart, others challenged her, and a few taught her the quiet strength of friendship. Through every betrayal and every triumph, Debbie emerged with grace, humor, and an unwavering dedication to her children and craft. Her life reminds us that legacy is not just fame or fortune, but the courage to love, forgive, and endure. Which of these relationships do you think shaped her the most? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this journey through Hollywood's golden era, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another story from legendary archives.